We are delighted to be joined by the chief of the Rochester Police Department. He is Chief Stephen Schettenhelm. Stephen Schettenhelm. Do I have that right, Stephen?
Yep, very good. Schettenhelm. It's a mouthful.
Schettenhelm, especially for me, because I got kind of a full mouth here. So thank you very much for joining us via Zoom, and welcome to the MegaCast.
Thank you very much.
So I was driving around my community late last night, and then I just I had to make a couple of stops, and I found myself out by Somerset Mall. And, we had the protest there 2 days ago. But even last night, there was a lot of police visibility, even at like 11 o'clock at night. Now, I just wonder if there are things that you're doing in Rochester, as they are doing in Troy, to take extra precautions, just an extra measure of safety, deployments that you might have with your police department. We don't want specifics, obviously, given all that's going on in our country and right here in Michigan.
Well, certainly, I think it's good policing practice and good community policing to make sure that we are out and about in the public. We certainly support people's right to protest peacefully. And I think having the police officers out there as part of that equation certainly helps to ensure that those folks are safe, that they are heard, their message is heard, and that it goes smoothly. So regardless of the size of that, person's protest, whether it's just a couple of folks with a sign or a larger protest similar to what they had in Troy, I think, we have a responsibility to those folks to make sure that it goes smoothly.
Chief, the other thing that's interesting, and another observation without getting into specifics, it seems like these protests are not so secretive. There's discussion, there are invitations in social media, and even the protesters and the folks who are organizing these protests seem to be willing to communicate with the local municipalities and let them know that things are coming up. And we're seeing many more scheduled, not just in Detroit, but in our suburban communities. Does that seem to be what you're seeing as well, and you're seeing some communication as well from these organizations?
Absolutely. And frankly, that's what makes them work well, is that open communication, so that we can work with the group and kind of meet in the middle as to things that we think would be beneficial for them, as well as to make things simpler for us and safer for the community. So I think that open communication is certainly beneficial.
It's definitely a world of good guys and bad guys, And if we needed any, I don't mean to laugh about it. It's just the reality. If we needed any evidence of that, all we had to do was turn on our TV. Over the past 8 days, a lot of people have been protesting and doing it in such a productive way, and then we've seen some really non-productive, terrible conduct and activities. Are you worried about the bad guys in Rochester right now?
Well, I think overwhelming majority of protests have gone very well, and the folks have worked well with the police officers and with the community, and I think we'll continue to focus on that part of the story and work with them and see that occurs. And I think the proper planning and communication can help quell some of the problems that we've seen in other locations. I think even if you compare what's happened in Detroit to other areas around the nation, even there, we're seeing the benefit of the reaction of the police and the restraint which they use to try to bring some calm to a difficult situation.
The chief of the Rochester Police Department is with us. He is Chief Stephen Schettenhelm. And Chief, you know what? I think you're right. And I think about Detroit right now relative to Las Vegas and New York and Philadelphia and Washington and on and on and on. These cities we've been seeing on national TV. We've not seen Detroit on national TV, and that's not because the media can't cover things here in Michigan. It's because things have been going pretty well considering here in Detroit. Do you think that's a result of ongoing work and ongoing relationships between the police department and the community?
It certainly has to be a factor. I think it's certainly job one, if you think about it, for any police department, is to be one with their community. We can't do this job alone. It works much better. As I say, policing is a kind of a team sport. It's not just us, it's all of us out there working together to keep our communities safe. And so that's why I think you're seeing the better protests, if you will, in our area in particular, and certainly if you compare it around the country, that spirit of cooperation and focus on listening to the folks that are out there pays big dividends.
Chief Stephen Schettenhelm is with us of the Rochester Police Department. We appreciate him taking time for us, one of our hard-working and fantastic first responders here in our coverage area. Chief, a lot of police officers have been taking a knee the past couple of days, and it seems to be a very effective way to bond with the protesters. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, absolutely. I think you have to look at the fact that we as police officers can't condone what occurred. And I think, in a way, we're protesting too. That's not acceptable behavior. If the officer was criminally charged, as he should be, and that process will take its course. But we, as a profession, can't stand by and allow that to occur without taking notice. And
I talked to
includes taking a knee.
Go ahead. I apologize. I talked to you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. And that notice, includes, taking a knee and participating, in these protests and assisting them to continue. As I said, it's part of making our statement as to what we believe was a tragic wrong that we can try to right by our actions as individual police officers and police department.
Well said. Sorry to interrupt. It's kind of like when you watch the network news. We have a little bit of satellite delay in our Zoom, so I apologize. Okay. By the way, best Zoom background I've seen yet on the show. I like
Thank
that. Where's that picture from? Is that something specific?
Yep, that's downtown Rochester at night, and we had some folks that were out taking some type of time-lapse photography, and actually that's those red and blue lights are from patrol car. So the way they do it, it kind of masks out the patrol car, and you're left with the lights in the downtown.
It's a great image, Chief. I talked to your colleague, Chief Mike Patton, in West Bloomfield a couple of days ago. He said he and a lot of his officers were mad. I mean, they're just mad because they work on the training, they work on interacting with the community. And, he said his initial reaction after seeing what happened in Minnesota and seeing the video that all of us saw, he was just mad. What were your emotions?
Well, I think it is maddening. It's frustrating. It does leave a black mark on our profession, and I think it's. I hope people will take notice of the good cops, the vast majority of good cops that are out there that are doing their job well every day, and cognizant of this situation. When I taught in the police academy, one of the classes that I taught was human relations, and one of the things that I tried to stress to the officers at the academy level is that when one of us does something wrong, the community doesn't care whether we wear a brown uniform or blue uniform. If we are on the East Coast or the West Coast, we all pay the price for bad policing. And this is just another example of that while this is not something that anybody here in this area did or would do, we also have to deal with it because of his criminal actions. And that's the state of affairs today. And we work harder every day to try to provide confidence, and that our officers are above that, well above that, and will do a good job, a safe job, and keep the public safe.
I saw a report from a law enforcement official on TV last night, and the discussion centered around the George Floyd incident and the additional 3 officers that were on the scene. As more information comes out, I know there's some concern as to the fact that they've not been charged. But I saw this, as of yet, I saw this officer on TV say something I thought was really impactful last night. He said in his department, for his officers, if they see it, they own it. And that really had a lot of impact on me. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, those 3 officers, they have a sworn oath to obey the law and effect an arrest, or at least take action when they see criminal activity in front of them. And this goes way beyond criminal activity. This is just wrong on any level that you look at it. And they certainly had a responsibility to act to save Mr. Floyd's life, and at the very least, following this, to accurately report what occurred and support any investigation that occurred. The fact that they didn't act is unconscionable. It's just, that is their job, is to save his life, regardless of how they came in contact with him. They had a duty to act, and they didn't.
Chief, thank you very much for talking about this so extensively today. I think it's important that we continue to have the dialogue, and I really appreciate your thoughts. And you mentioned that you have been engaged in the training of young officers. Do you think this incident is going to impact training for our future police officers?
Oh, certainly. I think it certainly reinforces what I said, that when you talked about owning it, we all own this incident, and to some extent have to respond to it and understand the erosion of confidence that it can have in the public. And I think by demonstrating the tactic skills, training, and the communication skills that officers bring to situations, to diffuse situations so that force is not needed, all go to restoring confidence in the police for the public they serve.
Well, Chief, good news. Monday, we will see the reopening of bars and restaurants and other establishments across our region. I talked to the city manager in Birmingham yesterday, and I know this might be a little bit outside of your area of influence, but we were talking about some of the restaurants and other establishments opening up on the sidewalks, and some relaxing of the liquor laws in the state of Michigan to accommodate that. And I don't know if I should say encourage it, but certainly to make it possible for these restaurants to move people outside. Do you see that happening in Rochester, and does that present any challenges for law enforcement?
No, we've been working closely with the city, our downtown development authority, and our businesses downtown, particularly our restaurants, to certainly explore this issue. Our city council and planning commissions have both taken steps to try to streamline the process for outdoor dining. There certainly is a thought that this would be a safer alternative for folks that may be concerned about going indoors to enjoy a meal out on the street or an outside dining situation. And so we're trying to do everything we can to make that happen as quickly and smoothly as possible.
And it's kind of nice to be able to have a meal outside on a nice summer night with a little breeze and a little less concern about the coronavirus and a little more social distancing. So I think it's a great idea. I hope it all works out real well, and I look forward to coming to your community and the other downtowns, quote-unquote small suburban downtowns around our area, and be able to get out and enjoy these communities again. I noticed yesterday, too, traffic really seems to be building back up, and you're encountering more calls and more activity in your department as a result.
Yeah, I think we're seeing our call law activity coming back to what we would consider to be normal. So yes, we're seeing more activity, more people out on the street, and I think that's only going to continue once we open up more retail and the restaurants and that. And we certainly welcome people back downtown and look forward to seeing them.
And Chief, finally, I assume that throughout all of this, most of our police departments have not had to cuff people, have not had to arrest people who have gone astray with the governor's orders. They have just needed to get a little friendly advice for the most part. I assume that's been the case in your community, and there's going to be some confusion even next week, and people will probably need a helping hand, don't you think?
Well, absolutely. We've been answering a lot of questions from our business community, trying to help them through that process. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this is a situation where we try to counsel people and provide them with the best advice. And overwhelming majority of people have been very respectful of what's trying to be done, really for their own safety. So I think it's going well.
Chief, good job. Thank you for everything you and your team has done through this entire crisis the past several days and the past several months. And we appreciate the work of all the first responders across our area. And I'm really looking forward to getting to downtown Rochester and downtown Birmingham and what I call downtown West Bloomfield and all of our wonderful community assets here across Oakland County, getting out and enjoying them a little bit more. And hopefully you and I can get a chance to bump elbows here sometime soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Chief. He is the Chief of Police in the city of Rochester, Chief Stephen Schettenhelm, joining us here on the MegaCast.